Hey everybody, it's your jungle expert Ryan Flares Doyle back again here to bring you yet another Mobalytics video. Today we're going to go over some unpopular strategies or picks that you probably haven't heard about yet and teach you how to play it. This time around we'll be looking at Fiddlesticks because despite him primarily being seen as a jungler, Korea have started to use him as a top laner and a support more than NA and EU counterparts. But the top lane full tank build is what we're going to go into today. However, the most overpowered thing you could abuse right now is our Mobalytics desktop app. We have itemization and rune importation, a slick GPI to point out all your strengths and weaknesses to help you improve, and the best part of all, a live companion feature that helps you see who's been inting or popping off recently in your games to give you the best information possible to win your games. So anyways, the reason Fiddletop is working so well in Korea is that players take advantage of Fiddle's nutty utility with his fears, silence, and considerable damage output from his Drain and ultimate paired with Aftershock, Spirit Visage, and Frozen Heart to make him legitimately unkillable in the mid to late game. This has probably been picked up more because of the recent minion damage changes he received on patch 10.11, helping out his wave clear considerably. Fiddle's win rate is awful pre 15 minutes, but if he can just squeeze past that, so don't open mid or surrender, he's actually really good. Fiddle isn't really supposed to have the best 1v1 potential, especially early. However, players are opting to rush Spirit Visage to amp up the healing from his Drain versus AP matchups, or Frozen Heart to increase your mana pool, give much needed cooldown reduction, and some hidden tankiness with an attack speed slow aura, which helps out big time when Fiddle enters team fights. Either way you go, you can't go wrong if you just play safe in the early game and hit your items. Since the base damage is pretty high and his abilities all come stacked with something extra, these two items get you to 30% cooldown reduction straight away. Transcendence gives you another 10% up to 40%, and suddenly you can spam out abilities and heals constantly. Also, a pretty neat thing is that you have 3 brushes or an alcove to sneak into to break vision and land a long range fear with your Reap, while also following that up with your Q to proc the double damage bonus. And of course, if they try to trade on you, you can just either fear them away, use your Reap for the silence and then slow, then Drain to get your HP back. Since you're also flexing Fiddle to top lane, you'll probably have a bit of a target on your back since he may be seen as an easy gank, but considering you have 2 forms of crowd control in the form of your fear and your silence, you can easily outplay tower dives or just provide powerful gank setup for your own jungler. Outside of the lane phase and in team fights, Fiddle will look for a good opportunity to flank with his ultimate and potentially get multiple people feared and chain that up with his silence and Drain. And because he has tank stats, he can't just be turned on and bursted down immediately, buying more time for your teammates to layer on the hurt for easily one team fights. So now that you'll have a general idea of the build and how it works, let's dive a little bit deeper, starting with our itemization. So for your starting items, it's best to start refillable potion versus melee matchups, whereas you'll want to start a Doran shield and a health potion into range matchups. As for your first item, like I explained earlier, will be a Frozen Heart into AD matchups or Spirit Visage into an AP matchup. As for your second item, you'll just build whatever you didn't buy first, so either a Frozen Heart or a Spirit Visage. And so for the most part, that's most of your tankiness, which makes you incredibly hard to kill, but now we take things up to 11 by adding even more survivability and damage into the mix with the Zanya's third item and a Liandry's Torment fourth item. And as for your last item, if you happen to even make it that far in the game, it's pretty situational. You can fit whatever the team needs into your last slot, but some items you can think of are Rylai's, Locket, Thornmail, or Morello's, but it's honestly just open for whatever's best. And if you're wondering about boot choice, pick up Ninja Tabis versus heavy AD comps, or Merc treads into a heavy crowd control comp. As for your rune setup, you'll be wanting to take Aftershock to help you with your survivability in the early game and making you that much harder to kill later. It's super easy to proc off of a fear, and especially comes in handy for when you want to ult flank over a wall and then everybody focuses you and legit does 0 damage. For your second row, you'll want to take Demolish mostly against tank matchups, otherwise Font of Life is a great default choice. Moving on to the third row, you'll want to take Conditioning if you're going against a tank like Ornn, Maokai, or Sion for example, because both players are looking to scale and neither of you are going to have the damage to 1v1 each other unless one of you severely misplays or gets a jungle gank early. Take Second Wind versus those pesky range champions like Kennen, Vladimir, and Lucian, which will pair nicely with your Doran shield, keeping you super healthy during and after trades. And then take bone plating versus aggressive matchups like Jace, Irelia, Jax, and Darius to help lessen the blow of their all-ins. I know, this all seems really tedious to think about, but you gotta remember, Fiddle has a weak early game, and by taking the best runes possible, you're creating an easier path to that 15-minute mark where you'll start to pop off. And as for the last rune in the tree is a no-brainer. Go with Revitalize. It just pairs so nicely with your Drain and Spirit Visage, only amping up your healing and sustain even further. And lastly, for your secondaries, head to the sorcery tree and take up Mana Flow Band and Transcendence with double adaptive damage in either armor or magic resist depending on the matchup. As for your power spikes with Fiddle, you're not really going to look to teamfight in the early game. However, you can really snowball yourself and your jungler ahead thanks to the crazy CC you have to set up easy games for your jungle. Your first real power spike will come at level 6 with your ultimate, as that'll pump out crazy DPS or just help with roam's mid lane if you want to be cheeky and ult from behind mid tower. After that, each power spike will be after each completed item, which only makes you that much harder to kill, while also dealing major damage at the later stages of the game. As for your laning phase is probably the most crucial aspect of the game when it comes to Fid top. Again, I cannot stress this enough. Your objective is to farm and make it to the 15-minute mark. If you have taken the runes I mentioned earlier, this will definitely help you get there. However, what you'll need to be aware of is that Fiddle's cooldowns are a bit high early, so your opponents will try to take advantage of that window of opportunity to find a good trade or potentially kill you. Be sure to hang on to your fear for when they try to all-in you, and use your Drain to regain any lost health while simultaneously trading back onto them. And if they're still being persistent and trying to chase you down, use your Reap to slow or silence them, buying you some much needed breathing room to wait for your cooldowns. Well, if you made it this far into the game, give yourself a pat on the back. You did it. Or things went terribly wrong as your bot lane is either 1-9 by now, or your jungler is flaming your whole entire team. Hopefully it's not doomed by this point, but this is where it's your time to shine. By the mid game, you should already have your boots and one item completed, or maybe two. At this point, you are going to want to play around your team and group up for objectives such as dragons, and look for a flank with your ultimate that your team can follow up on. The best part about this build is that you're still going to do a great amount of damage, but when people look to turn on you, as soon as you ult, you are just too tanky thanks to Aftershock and your tank items. And for the late game, it's pretty much the same as what you've been doing earlier. Group up with your team and look for flanks, except this time you'll maybe have a Zhonya's for that added AP and defensive stats, and even maybe a Liandry's, making you that much more of a threat. As for the tradition in these videos, we like to give a quick TLDR at the end of the video, so here goes. Fiddle becomes an absolute tank monster thanks to the Aftershock rune paired with alongside Spirit Visage and Frozen Heart. Your runes will be Aftershock, Font of Life, Conditioning versus tanks, Second Wind versus ranged matchups, and Bone Plating versus aggressive melee matchups, as well as Revitalize to boost your healing, with secondaries Mana Flow Band and Transcendence with double adaptive and armor or MR. Your starting items are going to be a refillable potion for melee matchups, and Doran Shield and a health pot into ranged matchups. Fid's top core items are going to be a Frozen Heart Rush into AD matchups and a Spirit Visage into AP. You'll be building Zhonya's third item with the Liandry's Torment to follow that up, with your last item being whatever the team needs the most. Your boot choice should be Ninja Tabi's versus AD matchups, or Merc Treads into heavy crowd control comps. Your power spikes are at level 3, but really only so you can set up your jungler for easy ganks. Otherwise, your first real power spike is at level 6. And lastly, play super safe in the early game, as you'll want to scale and hit the 15-minute mark before you really start to pop off when you group. And that's all I got for you all today, so I hope you enjoyed this video covering this new broken Korean strat with Fiddlesticks. If you think you have a champion or unusual playstyle in mind that you think should be featured, be sure to let me know in the comment section below. Otherwise, be sure to check out our other content on our YouTube channel, where we regularly will put out high and low elo tier list, as well as all of our content over at Mobalytics.gg. As always, thank you all so much for watching. Stay safe out there, have a wonderful rest of your day, and see you in the next one, Summoners.